Jim Barber, I would like to welcome you to my home. And you've been here before, and I've just enjoyed talking with you so much. You know so much about Branson, and you know everything about the arts. And so it is a delight to entertain you here. And we have become involved in organizations that have to do with theater and also art of on canvas. And I want to talk with you about TLC Theater. Actually, the name of it is Tri-Lakes Community Theater. That's what it is, but it seemed very convenient to call it TLC. And of course, we didn't lose fact of the fact that it is tender, loving care. It's a good idea if that's the first thing that you think of. All right. So, how did TLC start? One morning, as I was taking my morning shower and I was shampooing my hair and I was thinking about the current situation of Branson. When I first moved here, there was the Owen Theater. There was a cinema. That was it. I was grateful for the fact that in Springfield, it was the Springfield Orchestra, and that was what interested me as an oboist. That's where I wanted to play, and that's what I enjoyed doing. But then, in my time before I arrived in Branson, I was in certain places where I went to the theater of every university play, everything that came to town, and in many of those organizations, from those theaters, either in school or amateur, many well-known movie stars started their career. So I had always enjoyed live theater. And in Branson, we had none, and I missed that. And then it was also at the period of time where more and more people were retiring into Branson, and they had lived in larger cities, and I knew they enjoyed theater. We were just beginning the boom in Branson, where many stars from other walks, from other types of theater, country music and a little bit of other music, they were just beginning to build those theaters to change the entire scene of Branson, Missouri. It had always been a tourist spot, but it had a different emphasis at that time. So there were more people in this area that I knew would enjoy live theater. And I thought, we don't have it. And I missed it. And I knew that other people in this community did also. So I was getting ready that day to go to the nighttime meeting of the American Association of University Women. Many of them, of course, were teachers in the school, and some of them professional, but at any rate, a very lovely group of women. And usually at the last minute, I'm just barely getting myself dressed and out the door and go to the meeting. But that day, I thought, I'm not going to get into that last minute tizzy. I will shower early in the day, I will be dressed, and I will casually get ready to go to the meeting. So I'm in the shower, I'm shampooing my hair. The more I shampooed, it stimulated my brain more, and I thought, we will start a theater program in Branson. There are theaters here. They're dark in the winter months. They are empty. We have a place. There is a place for live theater. And I thought through that. I shampooed harder. I stimulated the brain more. And I had the whole thing in mind. And as soon as I could get myself dressed and get in to write it down to prepare for the meeting that night, how was it going to be funded? How were we going to get it started? Where were we going to find the people? I had it all worked out, wrote it down, just notes for myself, rushed off to the meeting. Did not have the time to speak to the president to warn her about what was going to happen. So when she came to, is there any new business? Yes, Madam President. And I presented to her a program for what we might do in Branson to start TLC Theater. Actually, I don't think I had the full title yet, but live music theater, musicals as well as drama. And so I suggested the program. The president was Elnora Sprague, and she said, Fine, but you can't do that alone. You need to have a committee. Are there volunteers? 4 other women volunteered. I think one of them still lives in Branson. Sherry Millsap, I think, is still here. The others, and I can give you their names, but they have moved away. They are gone. So at any rate, we have volunteers. As soon as the meeting was over, we met. It was in Sherry Millsap's house, and we decided we would meet the following day at my house and begin to decide how you go about doing this. We met every day. Elnora had asked for us to make a report to the committee on how we were going to start the theater. That would be on November the 1st, and we were to make that report. Meeting every day, we decided what we needed, what we wanted, we set the goals. We decided that we needed expert assistance. We could either go to the drama department at the School of the Ozarks. We could go to the professional actors who were at Silver Dollar City. There were various options, but we decided if we went to one in Branson, that then would give so much emphasis to that one organization that we might not be able to involve other theatrical people in the community. So we decided to go to Springfield. At that point, it was called Missouri State University, and Dr. Gilmore, I think at that time he was vice president of the university, but he had been the director of the drama department at MSU. So we made an appointment with him. I had known him with other associations and let him know ahead of time, which we hadn't done before with AAUW. And so we said, we would like your expert information on how we begin this. And he took us into a classroom, and on the chalkboard, he outlined the necessary elements for what you need to do, etc. And we decided on, he suggested his son-in-law, Terry Bloodworth, who did his drama work along with other very famous actors like Kathleen Turner. And so it was a very unusual class of students and teachers with whom Terry Bloodworth worked. So we asked, he said, why don't you try to get Terry to do your first show? And he said, I don't think he will because he's very busy, involved in other things. But we contacted Terry, we brought him in, we convinced him that he should be the drama expert in starting with us. He gave us a list of plays that he would like to do. We chose a play. We had everything set up. We were ready to go. We chose a date for when we wanted to do our first production. This was in October. We were going to do it in March. And in March 1985, we started in 84. March of 1985, we presented in November 1984 to AAUW the plan of what we wanted to do. And part of that was we knew that we couldn't finance it that quickly. And also we couldn't get the 501c3 that would be necessary for us to operate. So I suggested that we go in under the umbrella of the local chapter of AAUW, and they would finance it. And then we would work through their account. The money that we made would go back into the AAUW account, but they allowed us $500 from the budget of the local chapter to begin. So we were in business on November the 1st. We were ready to go.
And what was the first production?
Play It Again, Sam. I've made very amateurish scrapbooks from the posters until we reached a point in TLC that I couldn't get the posters anymore, or they weren't printing, and each of my little things became more amateurish. That's not my thing to do. Most of those, I've given them to what was the first museum of Branson, and I'm not sure that they got transferred to what was the Centennial Museum. Mm-hmm. Some of them are, anyway, and nevertheless, it's just a record of what we have done through the years. On the day that we decided that we would ask Dr. Gilmore to speak with us in Springfield, we had made so many plans and set our goals, and there was only one point in which we hadn't come to a complete agreement on how we were going to do it. But with everything else, we were ready to go. But we didn't have any officers. Well, I was driving the car, so I was the president. I mean, what other way would you do that? And this one woman wanted to be a secretary, but she got car sick, so she couldn't write it down. And so Denise Stevens could write in the car, take the notes without getting car sick. She's secretary. This was at a time when very few people had a computer. Sherry Millsap had a computer. She's the secretary. I mean, she's the treasurer. She was the treasurer. Hannah Wolf had a couple of courses at the college level on theater tech. And so let's see, did we make her the second vice president? No, I think we just put her in charge of the tech department. And the woman sitting next to me was the first vice president. Anyway, it wasn't exactly a studied manner of who's the president and who the officers are, but we worked together very, very well. So at any rate, we finally got organized, and we started our first rehearsals, and I, a very poor tennis player, chose to play with very good tennis players as my partner. And I was playing tennis one morning with this guy, 6'4", and he was pretty good. And I had missed the ball so many times. I mean, I could serve and get the point because I could just barely dump it over the net, but that was about all I could do. So my partner served, and then when it came back, I would say, good shot, and walk to the next point. Good shot, because they went right by me. So I was determined that I was going to, after my partner served, I'm going to get to that ball. I run as hard as I can go, but he's got longer legs, and he got there first. When we bumped together, I fell down. I broke my arm, my right hand, my right wrist. And so this is right at the point of organizing the thing. There was so much I couldn't do. I couldn't do the housework. So I was on the telephone all the time, contacting people to get started with TLC. So because I've got a broken wrist, I was a very efficient president. Obviously, as a beginner, we had no venue, but there were so many theaters available that were dark. And for the first one, I went to the Kirkwood Lodge that had a theater on the second floor. It was almost like a bridge. And it was really a very nice venue. So we talked them into allowing us to use that venue. And it was a big celebration. We were ready with a big reception. The reception was downstairs by the pool. All the important leaders of the community were there. It was a formal occasion. I'm wearing a full-length formal. And so as we were going in for opening night, I suddenly realized that the back stairs were muddy. So I grab up my formal and get a broom. I'm sweeping the mud off the steps, and it was very awkward to say the least. And my family and I were sitting near the front, and it was cool. It was a cold night. And when I finally settled down after my invigorating sweeping and so forth, I began to get cold. And during the first act, it was colder and colder, and it just terribly uncomfortable. So at intermission, I found the thermostat, and I turn it up high, and we go back for the second half, and the wind is just blowing in my face, and it's cold air. That was when we discovered that there was a shack on the top of the theater for a furnace and an air conditioner, and there was no equipment inside. When I turned up the thermostat, I was getting the outside cold air circulating throughout the whole theater. For the second night, we had heat, the small little heat fans all the way through the theater, and it was still cold. The actors were freezing. Their fingers were numb. Wow. Thereafter, when we had a show, I went to all the different theater people and said, may we please use your theater when it's dark. And they would be so kind in many instances that we only had to pay the electric bill or something of that nature, and they gave it to us free of charge. Many of the theaters did that, several years in a row. Other times it was more difficult. I remember one time I wanted to go into a particular theater, and the gentleman was even difficult to find. You couldn't catch him by telephone. His secretary never, it was difficult. And so I finally learned the color of his truck, and I asked two big guys. Mark Wise was one of them, who had volunteered from day one. We learned how to paint scenery. Well, he knew how to do scenery, and he was trying to teach me. So Mark Wise and Bob, one of the actors, went with me, and I said, you don't have to say anything, just stand at my elbow. So I finally tracked down the owner because we saw his truck, and he was out in one of his parking lots because he also had motels, and he was painting stripes in his parking lot. And so we just stayed with him. He would move, and he would move his bucket of paint, and we would step over the line and move right along with him. And I'm convincing him that he should allow us to use this theater. And these guys are standing next to me. You listen to what she says, was their attitude. And he did listen, and we got the use of that theater. Guess what? No heat.
No heat. Wow, that's a great story. Do you have memories of the Owen Theater that you can tell me about?
Yes, but you don't want me to say all of them.
I'd like to hear all of them.
Let me think.
Are
You
there
can
some
cut it
bad
out.
ones? Are there bad memories?
No.
Oh.
Well, for your purchase of it, yes.
Uh-huh.
You know there's water underneath.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you want me to go into that?
Sure. Anything you know about it.
Oh, sure. Oh, I'm having so much fun. There's so much of this I don't want you to use.
I'll have to do editing for certain.
A lot of it, because I'm realizing this is all on. We were very happy to have the opportunity to use the Owen Theater. I remember we did Man of La Mancha in the Owen Theater, many others, of course. We also did 1940s Radio Hour, on which the band, I was in the band, and we sat on the stage just as a part of it. That's the way I think it's supposed to be done always, but that's what we did. But most of the time, we had an orchestra pit. We didn't have an orchestra pit. We removed 2 or 3 rows of seats to make an orchestra pit. And at one time, there was a lower section. One time when we sat in the orchestra pit, we were sitting on the boards that have a space between them that they put under shipments that go on trains and so forth. Anyway, there was a wide space between the boards, and we could see the water trickling under there. We couldn't sit on the concrete because there's a natural spring under the Owen Theater, and our feet would be wet. But we sat on these boards, and I could see the water underneath. The Owen Theater has gone through many changes in its theater, in the proscenium. Sometimes there have been steps that go up the center of the stage. Excuse me. There have been times when there were stairs on the side, various configurations. And when we did Man of La Mancha, Andy Miller was designing our sets at that time. Andy Miller did all of the first drawings in preparation for the construction of Silver Dollar City. It started as the Cave and then became Silver Dollar City. And it was designed, of course, that all the buildings should look old, like an Ozark village from the early years. He was an excellent artist, but he also did the scenes for KY3, the background scenes. At any rate, a very artistic man. For Man of La Mancha, the set of the, I will call it castle, with the rocks of the building in the set would match the rocks that are part of the Owen Theater so that it flowed right into the theater. There have been such beautiful productions that TLC Theater has done in the Owen Theater, readjusting, changing, making the use of all of the possibilities of the Owen Theater. And now, as we go forward into the Branson Regional Arts Council, there will be again such great opportunity for the use of theater and other programs, lectures, cinema, or I should just say videos, whatever might be done. It's a great venue to adapt to the Branson Regional Arts Council.